Hello, friends. Welcome to the Great Things LLC podcast with your host, me, Josh Meter. Today, I interview Robin Lee Kennedy. All right, friends. I am here today. This is an exciting day for me. It's my first podcast, and I couldn't think of anyone better to start it off with than Robin Lee Kennedy. Let me just tell you a little bit about Robin and how we met. I was on LinkedIn, and I was looking for the newest marketing ideas. I had a business I wanted to promote, and I saw some posts and some articles she had out there, and I just loved the approach. But it was when we first talked that Robin and I really connected. We just vibed and really got it, and from there we've just developed a great relationship over the last year and a half or so, I guess.
Yeah, it has been.
Yeah. So I reached out, and Robin is a coach up in Canada. And a lot of people say, well, why would you need a coach? Because you're doing coaching. And one of my mentors in a different venue in real estate investment was a great influence for me. And one of the things he said was a Zig Ziglar quote that I absolutely love. And the quote is, you'll be the same person that you are today in 5 years from now, except for the books that you read and the people that you meet. And I think this is a great example of that. So, Robin, welcome.
Well, thanks, Josh. I feel honored being on your very first podcast.
Yeah, it's exciting. Everyone's doing it. You know, there's over 800,000 podcasts now out there. So it's a great medium, and it's a good way to distribute information. So let's jump into it. Robin, you've been a coach for a while now, and just want to kind of share with the world what you shared with me, a little bit about your process, you know, starting how you've got into it and a little bit of your background, just to give everyone a little bit more about you.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Josh. Well, my background is actually rather eclectic. I started my career as an intensive care nurse, and believe it or not, in that capacity, I learned an incredible amount about the human spirit and our capacity. And then I went into sales and marketing, and I found my way into coaching because I was climbing the corporate ladder, and the higher I climbed, the less I felt like I belonged in that boardroom. And so I started my coaching and training career focused on the corporate environment. So I was working mostly with senior executives and their teams. And I eventually evolved to working with entrepreneurs because entrepreneurs are the bravest business people out there. Yeah. And what I realized is that, you know, we're all the same. We're different, we're unique, but we're all the same in that I heard the same kinds of challenges and issues and wants and needs from CEOs as I heard from, you know, somebody that started their business last week.
Okay.
And so I realized that what I felt was really missing for most people, and, you know, often people wind up in careers because they've learned things through their own experience. And I learned through hard knocks what the power of your mind and the voices, the things that we tell ourselves about what we can and can't do and how we try to match up to other people. And I realized, Josh, and you probably remember from one of our initial conversations, that everybody has a genius inside, something really special, but we don't see it because it's natural to us.
Right.
And so what I do is I help people tap into their natural instinctive strengths, their, you know, instinctive way, natural way of doing things, and these are the things we were born with. This isn't things that we learned. But when we can leverage that and when we can really be ourselves and use our mental energy in the best way possible, we get more done in less time with less stress.
I can vouch for that on some of the advice you've given me over the years. Let's just take a step back to that, because that's one thing that I think really challenges a lot of people. They find themselves in a career that they've probably been very good at. They probably went to some schooling for, and they've worked their way up, but it's not necessarily satisfying as it did maybe when they started. Was there, when you mentioned not fitting into the corporate boardroom, was there anything specific that happened? Was there an aha moment, like I've got to change, or how did you get that strength and determination to shift focuses from what I'm assuming would be a good job and taking the risk and stepping out on your own?
Well, I won't tell you the company I worked for. I was a marketing, I was a product manager, and this is a global pharmaceutical company. And what happened is the president of the company tried to get me to say something bad about my previous manager because he wanted to get rid of him.
Mm.
And it was in the boardroom, and there were other directors and managers present. And I observed the way that people reacted to that. And they reacted, they didn't respond.
Mm.
Okay, so they jumped to protect themselves and to, wave the corporate flag. And I mean, Andy was like company man, amazing boss, customers loved him. I mean, it was just insane. And I realized that myself, and I wasn't in a position to change that culture, but what could I do? And was there a way that I could help companies create a better culture? And I mean, that starts inside, right? It starts with who you feel you are and what you believe your capacity is.
Well, that's very much in line with my experience with you. It's that authenticity and that integrity, and that internal piece comes first, no matter if you're a self-employed business owner or in the corporate structure. So that makes a lot of sense that piece was there from a very early place in your career.
Yeah, and the other, if I could just jump in and add this, the other piece is about values. And what I've often seen in the corporate world, and actually, I have to be honest, as a consultant, I often facilitated these kinds of sessions where the management team created the values for the company. So as the employee, the values are just handed down to you. You're not participating, you're not creating, you don't feel part of it. And so one of the things that I know is true, and you and I have talked about it, I'm sure, at some point, is that when you're feeling like, you have to know what matters to you, you have to know what your values are.
Right.
And when something in your life feels out of sync, just not right.
And that's a feeling I think that most people can relate to. Sometimes it's hard to put your finger on it, of what's out of sync or out of alignment.
Yeah, but when you go back to your values and you go, man, which one's being stepped on right now? What am I not, what's missing for me? What am I reacting to?
So, and along those values, because we took a little diversion there, but you were getting to it, and I think this was one of the really enjoyable things that I had come out of my engagement with you, was the identification of the values and the tool set that you used in the Colby report and how you integrate that. Part of my consulting too, in the conscious business consulting, really is focused on understanding the lifestyle and the value system before you start attacking the business, because you can make businesses successful on a numbers basis, but if they're not satisfying or fulfilling or not, or antithetical to your value system, you're going to burn out and hate life. So yeah, how do you determine those values? And you're used to the Kolbe. I'd love to hear, you share that, because it was a fascinating process to go through.
Well, Kolbe's the one that looks at your instinctive way of doing things. And there always is a piece of that that's tied to your values. I probably shouldn't admit this, but I don't remember whether you and I actually did the values in action.
We did, and I should have had it prepared for this, but it was really fascinating to see the values in action versus almost the values at rest.
Yeah, because so it's a combination of those two. So Kolbe looks at how you do things, and the values in action looks at what matters about doing things in your life, what you really need to be whole and complete. And one of the things I really enjoy about the values in action inventory is that it's based on character strengths, and they fall into one of 6 human virtues that are common worldwide, across cultures, everything. Mm-hmm. And what's so cool about the research done on this is that they were looking to see if you could actually change somebody's character. And so you look at these values from a perspective of, okay, this is how I'm going about, these are the things that are showing up. But is there something I'm seeing in this inventory of 24 that would make me happier, as an example?
Because I think we all know, I think we all know that person who might be, like I have a gentleman that I really respect, and he's one of the most brilliant financial planners, investment guys that I'd known. And, he was so good at it, made tons of money, but you know what his passion was? It was music. And when he got on the stage, he lit up. He was out there, and he was in his element. And it's funny because we do have skill sets, but they might not be in line with what brings us joy.
Well, that's so important. And, one of the groups of people that I really love working with, and it's kind of one of my avatars, are people who they've had some kind of success in a career. Maybe it wasn't their dream job, but they had some kind of success and they want to do something different. Maybe there's an old dream they want to, take off the shelf and dust off. Or maybe they don't know, but a lot of people now look at the concept of retirement and go, what? They can't conceive of not being involved in something meaningful. Yeah. So I love helping people see their best, know how to be happy, and parlay that into something meaningful.
Okay. Now the process, let's step into that, because you have done just amazing things, not only for myself, but I know for hundreds of others in that space of transitioning from one place to the next version of yourself. And that's such a powerful place to enlist the help of a coach. And going into that, so we talked a little bit about the Kolbe report and got a feel that, you really do look at the alignment of the person, the personality, and their characteristics and values. Now, how does that translate in the process for starting to identify the needs? And you mentioned the word avatars, and going into how, as a business owner, you can identify the avatars and a little bit how that can benefit people in these times of transition, whether they're forced into it or make a conscious choice to change their lifestyle.
Well, great question. And let me just boil it down to this. When you know the best version of you and you get clear on how to live that version and that you deserve to live that version, then you only want to be around people, including clients, that fit that energy, that space. So when you're clear on all of that about you, and you know what your skills are and what your purpose is, what you really want to do. My purpose is to help people see their genius inside, right? And create from that whatever is meaningful. And so it kind of becomes easy then. Yet there's an exercise, right? I believe I sent it to you. Lots of questions, because your avatar, one of the things that happens in small business, especially when we get started, is who's your customer base? Anyone with a pulse, right? Remember those days?
Yeah, bring them in. Let
me have anything. Oh yeah, I can do that. And that's the other thing we did. We kept changing, right? Not putting our genius inside forward. So when you're crystal clear and you create this avatar, that's who you speak to in all your marketing. And you will attract that person because that person is aligned with who you are. So messaging will attract them. And here's the great thing that people don't even think about. The other people that should come to you that don't fit that avatar show up anyway.
Right.
Isn't that funny how that works?
It is. And that was one of my, the big moment, the aha moment, or where it clicked, where I had a good idea of what my skill set was. I knew what my clients were, but I was still in that mentality of I need to bring in clients. And I wasn't honoring what that avatar was. And it worked, and I got some success, and I lost some traction. But as soon as we got that dialed in, and we got to the place where, okay, refine who you are, refine what you're doing, and refine who you want to engage with, it changed everything. The clients still came, and they came in the right amounts, and in the right types of clients came. So that process.
The other thing, I got to jump in because I think it's so relevant. Also, your team showed up.
Right. That was another big step for me. I've built large corporations, I've had multi-state corporations. And years ago, I moved and I got back to the solo entrepreneur, which is where I started. And it was interesting. I think you remember I had such a bad taste in my mouth of managing large amounts of personnel. At one point, I had 150 employees myself. I've always managed companies of about 65 in the department. And the HR and the human resources was not what I enjoyed, but I did enjoy building up my team, bringing them to the point where they could replace me. That was always my goal, is who is my next replacement so I can move on and upward. And that was always a success. But I got back to the solopreneur, and I'm I'm done with employees. I'll do it myself. And you and one or two other key people really challenged me on that. And the message was, once you go back, or once you go forward, you find the right support, you'll never turn back. And that's absolutely the truth. I have 3 amazing people I work with on a regular basis. They've helped my business. They've helped my lifestyle. And doing these things from the right. It was just, I can't believe I held on to that fear, or that hesitation for so long. If I would have gone back 5 years, I would have told myself the same thing.
It's so common though. This is E-myth, right? Michael Gerber talks about it. We become the technician. We start a business and we try to do everything. We don't get to that point.
And that's where really the value of coaching and partnerships, and there's so many creative ways. Before, you go back only 10, 15 years, we have so many more options today than we did back then. Freelancing wasn't as big. If you needed help with marketing, there were big agencies, there weren't the small boutiques. Technology is changing and leveraging so fast. So it's all shifting. And now with what everyone's under globally with the coronavirus, it's forcing that change even more. And one of the great examples that I think is just phenomenal to watch is I use GoDaddy for a lot of my hosting for my clients. They moved 7,000 employees out of their office within 1 week and got them set up all working from home.
Wow.
These
Amazing.
are transitions, and now that infrastructure is being put in place and tested. I think it's going to be a shift in the workforce. So there's different ways to get our clients, and there's different ways to meet our clients these days as well.
Absolutely. And, the other thing is it creates a space for us that we often don't give ourselves. This is a horrible situation. No kidding. And there's so much uncertainty. So what are the things we are certain of? That's what we have to grab onto right now. Mm-hmm. And some of those things are internal. What is it that we know we have to contribute? And if you don't know, this is a great time to reflect.
It really is. There's been no better time in history. I mean, if you're having the thoughts that you're not in alignment, or you want to take it in a different direction, why not start today? Everyone's at home, everyone's quarantined essentially. These are the times that you can make the investment in yourself and start looking into that.
Absolutely. Upgrade. Right? Upgrade your skills. And the other thing I want to say, and I say this all the time, is we need to breathe more. We need to recognize that we're stressed. And we need to and that's one of the best ways to take control of any emotional state, is to take a deep breath.
It really is. And yeah, well, as long as you got to do that regularly, or you got bigger problems in defining your
no kidding.
I enjoy my clients so much. I really do have some of the world's best clients. And my avatar, as we've developed over the years, is really that health and wellness, that small entrepreneur. And so many of my clients are either into the mental health realm or the energy therapy realm. There's EFT, there's tapping. I have several that are doing, breath work and breathing exercises. And the science is now starting to catch up with what's been known out there. And it's amazing how 5 or 10 minutes of, intentional and thoughtful breathing can reset your physiology and your brain chemistry to get you in the right place. So there's a lot of good things going out there. And I love, again, that's one of the things that you and I hit on, and why we, I think, resonated so well, because we do value those things. It's self-care and self-knowledge and self-awareness. And from there you can build, and from there you can be the better person in your family, in your community, in your church, in your business.
Well, the other thing that comes from doing this work and getting really fine-tuning your avatar is then your client base, you become their customer sometimes, right? Because you're looking for people that are like-minded and that care. And yours is being health and wellness. And so you surround yourself with those people, and they become part of your community.
Right. And, there's that word community. That's one of the things that's part of my mission, is to build a community and help people where I meet them. Now, if someone wanted to get started today, what would be kind of the overview of how you walk someone through from that first meeting to defining who they are, identifying their skill sets, and then looking into their avatar? Because I think this is really the place where people know they need it, but they don't know what to ask for or how to get there.
Yeah. Great question. Well, it's the same process, and it goes at different speeds according to who I'm working with and what work they may have done. You've done a lot of self-development. So you were kind of primed There was a lot that you already knew that I might have wanted to share with you if you didn't know. So that takes some time. And I always start with a 2 to 3 hour actually, first initial session. And before that session, both of those assessments you've done on your own. So during that session, we debrief them, and then we create together how we're going to work together. It's called the alliance. So we set that up. So things as simple as me wanting to know how tough you want me to be with you.
Which I love that question, because being an independent businessman and always driven, I've always been self-driven, and I know the value of accountability. And I think if you remember, I was a little uncomfortable with it at first, but I said, yep, you got to be, because I know I need help there. And while there was times I was like, oh, okay, yes, Robin, I'll get to it. It was extremely beneficial to have that support and that accountability, and I knew I could trust it to be there.
Yeah. So thanks for saying that. So we start with discovering your genius inside. And from that, and through all the beginning, I also discover, what you're up to, what you'd like to do, what you think is holding you back, where you've had successes before. So really, during that session, I get to know you, know what you're up to, and we get crystal clear on how we're going to work together and what that whole thing looks like. And then after that, it's every 2 weeks, and, by Zoom meeting usually.
Yeah, and that process worked well, because you're right. I love the focus that we started with, because we did take the time to get through that. So there was a very clear picture, and I felt that you understood the needs that I had personally and within the business. And from there, it was, I don't want to say it was transactional, but it was more, okay, this is what we need to do. Here's my problem or my challenge, Robin. How should I look at this? And sometimes you provided the business advice, like, well, do this. Or sometimes you provided the emotional and the almost more spiritual and guidance direction, like, well, look into this with yourself and then make the call. So it was a great process. And then the actual process of digging in and defining the avatars, creating those 3 key words for me, which are dream, collaborate, create. And once those were solidified, I'll share a little bit what it transitioned for me, because I was doing consulting, and I was really putting myself out there to be a very traditional small business supporting, very broad scope. And I realized it wasn't getting the right people, and it wasn't getting enough people. And then we refined it. And when I got that sense of dream, collaborate, create, and the avatar was identified, for me, again, it's the health and wellness, progressive social organizations, community development, those types of businesses. And my avatar was typically women in their 45 to 60 year age range that had a successful business but needed some help taking it to the next step. That is when it really exploded. And I'll tell you what, I've had more fun doing it than I've had working on any other projects. And, I have clients outside that demographic, but, those were brought in intentionally. And I work with great clients. And if I don't feel it, I'm not going to engage, because it's going to be a disappointment for them, and it's going to be a disappointment for me. And, I owe a lot of that clarity to what you've done.
Well, you did the work. It's a two-way street. People can't, this is another point that's really important to highlight, is you can't come to a coach and expect to be told what to do.
Great point.
Right? Yeah. I'm like, not your mom. I'm more like a mirror. And I'm going to reflect to you the best image of yourself once I'm clear on it, and remind you regularly to do that.
Yeah.
And, you touched on, I think one of the things that makes my practice different is, my marketing background. So most coaches don't necessarily do that.
Right. You've provided a tremendous array of services for me. One, I'll just throw out a couple so people can understand the breadth. Not only the identification, the avatar, and helping me refine my business model and my marketing approach in general, but even down to the specifics, like reviewing the language and the feel and the energy of my online presence, or helping kind of just needle through some scripting and some video production. So it's kind of A to Z, and I love the clarity you bring in, the example of the mirror and the reflection. That is truly it, because I know you've never really told me to do anything directly, but I know what I need to do. What you tell me directly is like, okay, this is what you need to have ready for our next meeting, and are you there, and have you had success with it? And then you bring up that mirror, and you can't get away from the reflection. So yeah, it's
absolutely. And when you know where you want to go, if I'm your coach and I see you lingering, I'm going to be just letting you know that without judgment, but I'm going to let you know.
Yeah, which we all need. The accountability is fantastic. Well, this has been outstanding. I'm so glad that we did this, and whether it goes anywhere or not, it's always good. And if it reaches one person or two people in the world, then that's fantastic. If you had any advice for someone that's thinking about making a change, whether it be a change in job, starting a new business, but really getting started in changing their lifestyle, what would be some of the advice you'd give to someone?
Well, I guess most people, if they've been in business for a while, will have had some assessments and things that they've done in the past. So I'd suggest they review them. And I'd also have them inventory all the things that they've done in their lives, including hobbies, not necessarily income producing, and start to get a sense of what direction they might be being pulled to. And then, if they can afford a coach, I'm going to say get one for sure.
I'm going to say you can't. I'm going to say, jump in here, you can't not afford to have a coach.
Well, I have a coach. I've had a coach. My coach is in Australia, and I've worked with her for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, I'm telling you, I know her. She knows me so well. She hears my voice and she'll go, "Okay, what's up?" I don't even have to say anything.
Yeah.
And like, if you understand the concept that we all have blind spots, we do.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have patterns that we don't see, that we're not aware of.
Right.
And so having someone show you those and help you evaluate whether that's how you want to show up in the world, and is that making you happy, and is that leading you to a life of fulfillment and joy.
Mm-hmm. And one more value coach, and this will be from my experience. When I started in real estate investing, I knew I had no experience. I knew it was what I wanted to do because I knew a lot of things. I'd seen it be successful for others when I was in the financial industries, but I didn't know anything about it. And I didn't want to make the mistakes. They're costly mistakes figuring it out on your own. And the value of the coaching that I had with that was it accelerated the learning curve. So I could go from here, up over 6 months, or I could go from here to here in 2 weeks through coaching and coursing. And when we talk about the financial commitment to coaching, it's not that much. And I can tell you, every dollar you spend will probably save you 5 times that in mistakes made and learning curves. So it's not a question of affordability. To me, it's more of a question of commitment.
Yeah. And, you got to be committed to your own happiness and success.
Yeah.
If you're one of those folks just trudging through life, not looking right or left, just doing the same old, and that feels good for you, fantastic. Coaching's probably not for you. But if you want to find your best and live your best, if you already were doing that, you wouldn't need a coach. If you're not, coaching can help.
That's great. Well, Robin, I thank you for your time, and I also thank you for the last 2 years. And most of all, I thank you for your friendship. We've certainly developed one. Robin, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how's the best way they can reach you? All right. I hope everyone enjoyed the podcast today. If you'd like to get in contact with Robin, I will leave all of her information in the comments below. You can also find her website and other information there. So thanks again for listening and being a part of this humongous historical event of the first Great Things LLC podcast.
Thanks so much, Josh.
All right. Thanks, Robin. We'll talk to you later.
Take care.
Thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button right now. Stay tuned and check out the channel for other interesting and informative videos.